Why avoidants miss the anxious ex they once rejected. Let's dive into one of the most emotionally confusing dynamics in relationships. Why avoidant people often circle back, missing the very anxious ex they once pushed away. On the surface, it seems impossible. How can someone who rejected closeness, avoided intimacy, and needed space suddenly long for the person they left behind? But the truth is, avoidants are not emotionless. They're not incapable of love. They just process relationships through fear, distance, and self-protection. And when you understand their emotional wiring, their sudden longing for the anxious partner makes perfect sense. This isn't just about missing someone because they're lonely. It's about an avoidant facing emotions they've spent their whole life running from. And ironically, that anxious partner, the one who felt too much, who was accused of being clingy, often becomes the one person they can't get out of their mind. Avoidant individuals tend to operate in cycles of closeness and withdrawal. In the early stages of a relationship, they might pursue affection, flirt, and even pour on the charm. But once emotional intimacy deepens, their nervous system gets triggered. To them, closeness feels like danger. They start creating distance, becoming cold, distracted, or suddenly needing space. The anxious partner, who naturally craves reassurance, senses this distance and tries to bridge the gap. But instead of reassurance, the avoidant feels suffocated. And this is where the heartbreaking push happens. The avoidant pulls away, maybe even ends the relationship, convinced that it's not working or that they just need to be alone. In that moment, they feel relief. But here's the twist. This relief is temporary. Over time, that same avoidant finds themselves thinking about their ex more than they'd like to admit. Why? Because avoidance isn't about not caring. It's about fear. And fear has a strange way of turning into longing once the threat of closeness is removed. When the anxious partner is gone, the avoidant feels something they've been avoiding their whole life: emptiness. During the relationship, they were so focused on maintaining their independence and avoiding vulnerability that they didn't realize how much emotional safety the anxious partner actually gave them. Yes, anxious individuals crave reassurance, but they also offer it in abundance. They're often deeply loving, nurturing, and willing to hold emotional space for their partner's moods. The avoidant may not have expressed gratitude in the moment, but their nervous system felt it. When that's gone, they feel a void they can't easily fill. Suddenly, the quiet feels too quiet. The solitude they once defended now feels like loneliness, and their mind starts replaying memories, not the fights or conflicts, but the warmth, the emotional connection, the way their anxious partner cared. It's only in their partner's absence that they begin to recognize what they truly had. Another reason avoidants miss their anxious ex is because avoidant attachment is not about not wanting love, it's about fearing it. These individuals often grew up in environments where love felt conditional or overwhelming. As adults, they've learned to equate closeness with danger. They push away to survive emotionally. But underneath that defense system lies a deep longing for connection. The anxious partner often triggers this longing in a powerful way. Their desire for closeness, while overwhelming to the avoidant at first, is also intoxicating because it touches something the avoidant secretly craves but doesn't know how to ask for. This is why, after rejecting the anxious partner, the avoidant can't stop thinking about them. The rejection wasn't because they didn't love them, it was because they didn't know how to feel safe while loving them. And once that anxious partner is gone, they realize they've lost the very thing they wanted all along. Time and distance play a huge role in this shift. Avoidants need space not just to feel safe, but also to process emotions. During a breakup, they initially feel relieved because they've escaped what they perceive as emotional pressure. But as time goes on, that relief fades. They start to reflect, and memories creep in. Anxious partners tend to leave a deep emotional imprint because of how emotionally invested they are. They give love fully, sometimes too fully, but that kind of presence leaves a mark. While an avoidant might seem detached during the relationship, they're absorbing more than they let on. Later, when they're alone, those moments of affection, loyalty, and care come rushing back, and they start to feel regret. That regret often surprises them, and this is when they realize that their fear drove them to reject something meaningful. Avoidant individuals have a complicated relationship with emotions, especially nostalgia. They struggle to process feelings in real time, but often replay past relationships like a movie when they're alone. They analyze moments, conversations, and memories, and from a safe emotional distance, they begin to idealize their exes. The same closeness that once felt overwhelming, frequent calls, emotional talks, a desire for connection, can later feel like proof of deep devotion. For many avoidants, love feels safest when it's distant, which is why they often miss their ex more after a breakup than they appreciated them during the relationship. It's not that their feelings suddenly appear, it's that they finally feel safe enough to feel them. For the anxious ex, this dynamic can be deeply confusing. After a breakup, anxious individuals often blame themselves for being too much, not realizing their intensity created a strong emotional bond in the avoidant's heart. Though avoidants rarely express it openly, they deeply feel the care and stability their partner provided. When that presence is gone, no casual fling or distraction fills the void. This is why avoidants often reach out months or even years later with vague messages like, "Hey, how have you been?" They're not just missing a person, they're missing the safety they didn't know how to appreciate. Avoidants also carry guilt and unresolved emotions. Because they often end relationships abruptly or without clarity, they're haunted by unanswered questions. Over time, guilt mixes with longing, leading them to reconnect. However, this doesn't always signal real change. Avoidants process emotions slowly, and missing you isn't proof that they're ready to meet your needs. It simply shows that your love impacted them more deeply than they realized. Dating new people often highlights this for avoidance. They bring the same fears and walls to every relationship, which keeps their connections shallow. As they compare new partners to their anxious ex, they start to recognize the emotional depth they once had. Missing their ex becomes a safe way to feel connected without facing intimacy in the present. This cycle often keeps avoidant, anxious couples trapped in patterns of breaking up and reconnecting. Longing replaces love, and fear remains unhealed. One crucial truth is that avoidants often reject the people they love most. When they truly care, their fear of vulnerability intensifies, and they may push that person away to protect themselves. This is why an anxious ex is often seen as the one that got away, not because they were perfect, but because the avoidance defenses sabotage the relationship. Distance allows their real feelings to surface, but by then it's too late to rewrite the past. For the anxious ex, understanding this is powerful. Their rejection wasn't proof of being unlovable, it was proof that their love overwhelmed someone afraid of closeness. The avoidance longing now is not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their struggle. This explains why avoidants often check in quietly, scroll through old photos, or watch from afar. They feel the weight of what they lost, even if they can't say it out loud. Ultimately, this story is bittersweet. It's about real love buried beneath fear and self-protection. Yes, they may miss you. Yes, they may even come back. But missing you is not the same as being ready for you. That's why anxious partners must choose themselves, stop chasing, and recognize that love should feel safe, not exhausting. When you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself instead, their longing loses its grip on your heart, and that's when true healing begins.